For this video, I want to go over 3 different algae eaters that are great options for most betta fish tanks. I've kept all 3 of these algae eaters with 3 different betta fish in 3 different tanks, and for the most part they all worked very well. So first up we have Amano shrimp, and if I could only choose one single algae eater for my betta fish tanks, it would be this one. I know that these guys do look bland when compared to some of the other popular shrimp in the hobby, but you keep Amano shrimp for their algae eating abilities, not their appearance. Adult Amano shrimp are usually around 2 inches in length, making it less likely that your betta fish will eat them, but smaller juvenile Amano shrimp may end up becoming expensive snacks for your bettas. My first betta fish, Skittles, enjoyed hunting and eating the smaller Neocaridina shrimp in her tank, so I ended up having to remove them, but she would get very close to the Amano shrimp and she just decided to leave them alone. That said, I do still like to add hiding spots for my Amano shrimp and add plenty of plant cover or hardscape cover so they can go off and hide, especially after a molt. One of the main advantages of keeping Amano shrimp in your betta tank is the wide range of algae types that they will eat compared to other options. Most people agree that Amano shrimp will eat green spot algae, green dust algae and brown diatom algae, as well as a few other soft algae types, but I have seen some people report that Amano shrimp will also eat blackbeard algae and staghorn algae too. Amano shrimp are a picker type algae eater, meaning that they go around your tank and pick off the algae from different surfaces such as rocks, driftwood, substrate and plants, but they may struggle to eat algae from flat surfaces such as tank glass. Keeping 1 Amano shrimp per 5 to 10 litres of aquarium water should be enough to keep most algae types under control in a balanced, established betta fish tank, but they can be a little too good at their job. Once the bulk of the algae is under control in my tanks, I do like to start target feeding my Amano shrimp 3 times per week by adding food to the tank specifically for the shrimp. I used to use Hikari microalgae wafers, but their high protein content did sometimes get attention from my betta fish, so I switched over to shrimp snowflake food and it works perfectly. There's plenty of water parameter crossover between Amano shrimp and betta fish, so they should work well in most betta tank setups. Female Amano shrimp can end up buried with eggs in freshwater tanks, but their young require brackish water to survive, so you don't have to worry about population problems in a small aquarium. So yeah, just to reiterate, if I could only choose one algae eater for my betta fish tank, it would be the Amano shrimp, and I highly recommend them because they are excellent algae eaters and it's unlikely a betta fish will try and eat them. Next up we have Neocaridina shrimp, with cherry shrimp being the most common variety in the hobby. I'm a huge fan of cherry shrimp, but their small size can put them on the menu for some betta fish, but out of the 3 different bettas I've kept, only one of them would actively hunt the cherry shrimp in her tank. One of my other bettas would eat baby cherry shrimp in his tank if they got too close to him, but he would just leave the adults alone to do their thing. And my other betta never displayed any type of aggression towards the shrimp in his tank, and he often likes to get close to them and just stare at them and watch them while they're grazing on food. Unfortunately, the only way that you're going to know if your betta fish is going to eat Neocaridina shrimp is to actually try them in the tank, and some of the higher grade shrimp can be expensive in certain areas. As I mentioned earlier, I have plenty of hiding spots in my betta fish tank, so my Neocaridina shrimp can easily swim off and hide if needed, but if you don't have any hiding spots, getting some type of shrimp tube or some kind of driftwood or something like that might be worth it. I have seen some people say that Neocaridina shrimp don't eat algae, but I have 4 Neocaridina only tanks with nothing else in there, and I've seen them actively eat various types of algae in those tanks. A study published by Tropica also found that Neocaridina shrimp were the 2nd best algae eater that they tested relative to their body weight when offered soft green algae and brown diatom algae. In my experience, Neocaridina shrimp eat large amounts of brown diatom algae, but they will also feed on different types of soft green algae too. I usually like to add a couple of Neocaridina shrimp to my Betta tanks as they'll quickly breed in fresh water and produce lots of hungry mouths. The army of Neocaridina shrimp then focus on eating all of the easier, softer algae types in the tank, so your Amano shrimp are left to deal with the more difficult types of algae that Neos won't eat. Neocaridina shrimp are also a picker type algae eater, so they may struggle with algae that grows on your tank glass, but other than that they will pick at pretty much anything they find in your tank and try and eat it. My Neos absolutely love eating shrimp snowflake food too, so they end up getting target fed at the same time as me target feeding my Amano shrimp in my Betta tanks to make sure they've always got something to eat. One of the main advantages of Neocaridina shrimp is the wide range of colours that they are available in, allowing you to pick something that pops with your specific Betta tank aquascape. Red cherry shrimp are the most popular in the hobby right now because their red colour contrasts really well with the green of planted tanks, but red Bloody Mary shrimp also look amazing and work really well with plants. If you are into the aquascaping side of the hobby, then Neocaridina shrimp can add that extra layer of detail or complementary colour to your tank that can be difficult to find with other algae eaters. I have successfully kept Neocaridina shrimp in slightly soft water, but they always seem to do better in tanks with harder water that offers plenty of calcium and magnesium for molting. Finally, we have Neurite snails, and the shells on snails do offer them some protection against a potentially aggressive betta fish, but none of my 3 bettas really paid any attention to the snails in their tank. The main advantage of Neurite snails over other popular freshwater snails is that their eggs require brackish water to hatch, so they won't overpopulate your tank. At the time of recording, I've only kept the more common and cheaper zebra Neurite snail and the smaller, slightly more expensive horned Neurite snails with my betta fish. Initially, I was worried about my betta fish trying to eat the horned Neurite snails, as they are around a third of the size of most other types of Neurite snail, but my betta just ignores them. Most people seem to agree that Neurite snails will happily eat brown diatom algae, green dust algae and green spot algae, but there are videos on YouTube and social media showing them eating blackbeard algae, but this does seem to be on a snail by snail basis. Neurite snails are scraper type algae eaters, unlike the picker types with the shrimp, meaning that they'll go over harder or smooth surfaces and scrape the algae off them, including your tank glass. My Neurites just choose random paths across the tank glass, eating the algae as they move across it, and they leave these random little lines behind which tend to catch the eye and make the algae stand out even more. I mainly keep snails in my tanks just for a little bit of biodiversity, and I'll just manually clean the front glass panel on the tank once per week to keep it clean. A lot of Neurite snails are a very similar size to the zebra Neurite, so 1 snail per 30 litres of water should work fine, but you can add a couple of the smaller horned Neurite snails at a rate of 1 per 10 gallons of water if needed. One important thing to note is that most species of Neurite snail do require harder water, so the calcium in the water column can help them maintain their shells, so keep this in mind. Anyway guys, that brings the video to an end. Hopefully it was helpful, and as I've mentioned a few times through the video, I honestly think Amano shrimp will get the job done for the vast majority of people. Thanks for watching.